And welcome into Pressbox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me right now on this episode of Pressbox Live is Mary Drexler, the director of the Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling. And I have a question for our viewers out there to start the interview. What company has the expertise and technology to make your home substantially more energy efficient, comfortable, and even virus free? That would be AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com. And I'm sorry for that awkward beginning there, Mary, but welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And I wanted to start off with something. I know you gave me a list of some topics to talk about, but I wanted to start with the name of your organization. I know you're under the University of Maryland School of Medicine, but you're the director of the Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling. That word excellence is such an interesting word to me because I think in my life, and I've had trouble with gambling at one time in my life, and it's an ongoing problem. I'd never call it excellence. You know, the word excellent wouldn't come into my head. Can you tell me a little bit about the genesis of that name?
Yeah, I think even the word excellence really comes from when this was founded back in 2012. Number one, it was legislated that there would be an entity here in the state of Maryland that would, as casinos came into place, and that was mainly what was coming, or bingo halls, that there would be a place where people could go to get the right kind of resources that would be needed should they have a gambling problem. And our original founder, Joanna Franklin, really wanted to pull together individuals with expertise in the field of problem gambling to be able to provide the best quality service possible. And I think that's where the name kind of originated from.
From experts. Okay, I
Yeah,
got you.
from
The
just
the
bringing
need.
together all the expertise they could from individuals who have a very good working knowledge of problem gambling.
All right. I want to ask you some questions that just come from my heart and my mind
Sure.
about this issue. Is in a weird way, has the introduction of gambling, legalization of gambling on so many levels now, does that provide a better opportunity to help people, or does it cause the problem?
Well, I think it can go both ways.
Okay.
Uh, Definitely having it legalized. I think for many, it would be more trustworthy that there are some regulations in for responsible gambling practices. So I think it can go that way. The other, though, is with all the expansion we've seen, we started out with just the 6 brick and mortar casinos and the bingo
Yep.
halls, but now we've moved with online and mobile sports betting. I think as we move further and further, we're going to see people who may not have chosen to gamble, maybe have not wanted to go to the brick and mortar casinos, or,
Hmm.
venture out, can do it from their living room couch. So I think we're seeing a really difference that's coming with how many individuals might be more at risk for developing a gambling problem over time.
Are you finding, in my experience, when you get to my age, and I'm in my early 70s right now, people, I'm not saying it's still not an issue, but what I'm finding is I hear stories from my peers about their sons mostly
Mm.
that are in their late 20s, early 30s, that maybe had never been exposed to it as much as it is now. Are you finding that the problem is all across the map with age?
Yes, it is. And with sports betting,
Yeah.
especially, it's higher for young adults under the age of 35. So we know that that's happening. We know that we've gotten even calls from parents of college age youth, even though it's 21 to be gambling. There are ways to gamble, even if you're not 21. I mean, there are still bookies on campus and other
Hmm.
ways to do gambling activity. But we are seeing that sports bettors actually are twice as likely to develop a gambling problem. So now it's easier, more accessible. We're seeing a younger demographic for sure that's coming in, and they may not call our helpline, but they might chat or text us on the helpline. But so we're trying to follow that trend, and hopefully we'll have even further information when the legislative session comes up, because as sports betting came into play a year ago for online and mobile, but also before that for the brick and mortar casinos, we are starting to see an increase, but it takes a few years to really see how much of an impact it's going to be.
I'm not diminishing the part that in casino gambling might play in this, but kids over the last 20, 30 years have developed such a passion for sports. It's
Yes.
such a part of the Thanksgiving holiday is
Yeah.
sitting around watching football games and sharing opinions. I would think that this end of it, the sports betting thing, can comprise a large chunk of the newer wave of gambling issues.
Yeah, I agree. And keep in mind, you're not only betting on this team's going to win or that team's going to win. You can bet on almost every play now.
Yes.
So, and if you haven't noticed, and I think most of us have, the advertising from the gaming industry on betting is significant. And we would love to do as much advertising on the prevention side, but are more limited in our funding to do so. But we're looking to get more funds or additional funds for more public awareness, because I think sometimes people don't know where to go or where to call.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just interviewed John Martin, who's the executive
Yes.
director of the Maryland Lottery and Gaming.
Mhm.
And, the amount of advertising we've seen for gambling, it is going to decrease significantly because the state allowed sort of a buy-in the first year
Yeah.
to acquire customers. But
Yeah.
let's go back to one thing. Gambling is positioned by the companies as fun entertainment, and it can be
Yeah.
fun, especially when you win. What what defines it as a problem, Mary? When does that become a problem?
Yeah, well, you noted 90 to 95% of individuals can gamble recreationally. It's
Yeah,
that other percentage, the 2 to 5%, and maybe another 5% who might be at risk, that have an issue. Here in Maryland, the last prevalence study that was released in 22 showed that about 4% of Marylanders in the last study met the criteria for problem or pathological gambling. So, I know we're about what, 6.5 million people here in this
yeah.
state, but 4% is a significant number of individuals at this point, and that was back in 22 when that study
And
was
Mary, let me
released.
interrupt you. That's only the people that have the gambling problem. It
Yeah,
doesn't talk about the
about
percentage of people that are their wives, their
yeah.
brothers, their kids. So it's a lot larger than that.
Yeah, it's those significant others. It could be even coworkers that are impacted by the gambling activity and the problem gambler, but loved ones, most assuredly,
Yeah.
are definitely impacted by this, and they can reach out as well. Here in Maryland, we have what's called no cost treatment. So not only can the gambler get help at no cost when seeing a counselor, but the family members can as well. And I don't think they all need to know that, and they all need to know they can reach out. We're there to support them as well.
If somebody is watching this video, and we hope to have a lot of people watch it, but a lot of the people that watch it won't have a problem. But if
Yeah.
somebody is and they're experiencing it, can you give them some immediate, aside from the 1-800 gambler, to get somebody on the hotline to talk about something that they can see in their behavior? Because gambling can be some irrational behavior, but what
Yeah.
they might see that says, I've got a problem.
Yeah, spending more money than they intended on spending, number one. Uh, Gambling for longer periods of time. Not getting up, especially if you're in a casino and you're just sitting at that slot machine for hours and hours and hours. Starting to see some serious financial
Yeah.
problems, not paying their bills. They begin lying a lot more. People don't really know where they are when they're there. making up stories just to be able to continue their gambling activity. They start using it to escape some personal problems too, or they're depressed. They're at work, but they're thinking about gambling all the time,
All the time.
you
Yeah.
know, or even if they're sitting at home, that's what they're thinking about. When can I place my next bet? That would do it. I think gambling more and more to cover losses. We always talk about chasing your losses. You know, you have this big win.
Doubling down. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have this big win and you're like, oh, great, I'm so lucky now. And then you continue to gamble, and then pretty soon you find out you don't have any big win anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that's one. And then if a family member or somebody starts borrowing, or you see things that aren't there anymore, like something's missing from the household or whatever. So I think those are some of the things that they can start looking at.
Uh, so if somebody senses that,
Mhm.
the initial thing it's tagged on every spot that we do for
Yeah,
casinos is to call 1-800-GAMBLER. When
yeah,
somebody in the state of Maryland calls that number, they're getting a helpline, a hotline,
yeah,
manned 24 hours a day by people
yeah.
that are experienced in these problems, and they're under the umbrella of the University of Maryland School of Medicine, correct?
Yes, we fund the helpline to be able to help any Maryland resident get the resources they need from either a counselor or a support group. Not everybody wants to go to an individual counselor, but there are support groups for both the Gambler GA and Gamanon for the family members. There are other support groups, Smart Recovery, other places in the state. We do, we're limited on our residential here in Maryland, but any of the resources they need. And I think the most important one is they can get what we call a warm transfer directly to one of our peer recovery specialists. So if they're not ready for the full-on treatment, they'll get connected to one of our 5 individuals who cover the state, who have lived experience with gambling and potentially other addictions as well.
This is it's quite an issue. This again, that number is 1-800-GAMBLER, and that is on every spot that it runs in the state of Maryland. Um,
I would also, let them know about helpmygamblingproblem.org. And I say
okay,
that because the younger demographic doesn't necessarily like to make a phone call either, or chat
yeah.
or text. They'll often go to our website and for the gambler themselves or the family member, it's helpmygamblingproblem.org. And there's even a self-assessment on there. So if they want to just self-assess themselves to see if they might be at risk, they can do that on the website.
I think it's very healthy though that you and your organization aren't, and I understand it's been mandated by the state that you do
Mhm.
what you do, and the state brings in a lot of revenue from gambling. But I think it's actually more helpful that you're not a vigil, your organization isn't vigilante
Yeah.
attacking gambling. You're
No.
trying to work toward getting people to play responsibly and
Yes.
trying to get the people that do have a problem kind of out of the arena, so to speak.
Yeah, we do. We are I'm not sure I like the word neutral, but we work with the gaming industry.
Yeah.
We want all of us to be on the same page. If someone's going to choose to gamble, we want them to do it responsibly. We want them to know what to look for, and we want them to know where to go for help.
All right. And again, the two ways are the 1-800-GAMBLER
Hmm.
and and what's the other one you just gave out? Because
Yeah,
I
it's
hadn't seen it.
helpmygamblingproblem.org.
MyGamblingProblem.org.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it's got a lot of useful information for both the gambler and their family members or people who are concerned about someone.
all right. Mary, this is the first time we're talking, and I hope we'll periodically have you on to talk about this because, as I said, it's something that I have learned to live with. It's
Hmm.
not always easy. One of the ways that I deal with it most of the time is I play in sort of fantasy baseball league
Hmm.
where the amount of money I can win or lose is kind of known to me, and it's not something I can change up on it. So,
Yep.
I mean, you learn to adapt in certain ways
Yeah.
to people and make it less of a problem. But if I start to play games, bet on games, it easily can get out of hand. There's no
Yeah.
question about it.
Yeah, and people will relapse. I mean, that does happen where there can be relapses. It's just knowing where you can go to get the help that you need should that occur as well. And one of the other things, there is what we call the voluntary exclusion program. It's like one tool we have here in Maryland where you can exclude from entering the casinos, and it's for all the Maryland casinos for 2 years or lifetime. And now we've actually added sports betting, online sports betting, where they can exclude from that. And then we work with the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Agency to make sure that they're not able to access those points. So again, it is a collaborative effort. We want to do what's best for the Maryland residents who are choosing to work, and participate in gambling.
We talked. Can I take a break right now to do a
Sure.
sponsor read, and then I got some
Sure.
more questions about it.
Okay.
Uh, I'm not trying to be lighthearted about this, but what we talk about now is gambling. When you choose a place to go dine, you don't want to gamble on where you're going to spend your money. You want a proven winner. The Costas Inn is my go-to place in Maryland. They've been at the same location, 4100 North Point Boulevard, for over 50 years. They're a safe, sure bet for you when you choose to go out dining, and crabs all year long, all 12 months of the year. 410-477-1975. Call them up to get the price point, the size, and availability before you just head on over to a place, because you do need to reserve your crabs. We continue with our time with Mary Drexler, the director of the Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling. And Mary, again, this issue of the youngsters that are getting more and more involved in gambling. If you're a parent and you see behavior in your son or daughter that is problem, it seems to you to be a problem. What do you suggest a parent do where the kid is not going to admit that they've got a problem, but you're a parent and you're worried?
Well, first, I would work with the parent to get the support they need to be able to, you know, work with their child on the issue of gambling. And the way to do that is to do a support group with other parents of
Yep.
individuals or who have kids that gamble. What have they tried? What has worked for them? Obviously, you want to have a conversation, if you can, with the individual. They may say, I have no problem. I mean, oftentimes we don't come right out and say, oh yeah, I have a gambling problem.
Yep.
But asking the questions, and if you're starting to notice things like disappearing, like where are things going, or somebody, all of a sudden you're missing some money, ask the questions. You have to communicate it. You can't be afraid to talk about it as an issue, like with any other issue teens that we talk about it with. You have to ask the questions.
My experience, I tend to always think of the problem of addiction as being a male problem with
Yeah.
gambling and sports gambling. A few years back, I met a woman, and now I forget her name. We had her on our TV show a few times. She was more on a national level talking
Mhm.
about the problem she had with gambling. Do you find that this problem is cross gender? I mean, it's not just male, it's just not males.
Yeah, it was always over 50% male, a little less than 50, but the gap is closing. More
Yeah.
and more women are gambling and will find themselves in the same position as if it were a male. And again, as you get online and mobile gaming going on, you're probably going to see more women get involved too, who may not have necessarily went out or went into a casino. Um, but yeah, and I do know, and I don't know if John Martin had talked about it, but there is probably going to be a bill in the next legislative session for iGaming, which
Yeah.
is putting casino games online, which
On
could
your home
really,
line. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, which could also increase more people who may not have gambled before to at least say, wow, this is easier to do. It's mobile, it's online. So we're moving very quickly with the legalization. And I'm not against legalization. I'm
I
just saying we
understand.
have to look at how quickly this is moving forward.
Okay. Just one last quick question, and again, I hope we'll repeat this in a couple months,
Okay.
that we have you on to talk about this. If you could break it down to what triggers this issue for an individual. In other words, is it the endorphins that the gambling produces that become addictive? Or is
Yeah,
it the
I
chase? Is it the chase after big money? You know,
I think you're naming them all.
yeah,
I do
I
think
had
there
them.
is
Trust
the
me.
effect on there is the effect that gambling has on your brain, on those endorphins. It's those levels of dopamine, as people
Yep,
refer to it, which brings on those feelings of pleasure. It's what makes gambling more addictive. It does the same with drugs. I feel
yep.
better on that. So when we release that dopamine, it generates exceptionally good feelings each time a gambler has a win. The other is chasing, those losses. You have this big win. Sometimes I think that's not the best thing to happen, to win $25,000, because now I'm lucky. I'm not going to leave this machine, or I'm
Yeah,
not
and I
going to leave
can't
this poker
possibly
table.
lose all this money. I'll have
Yeah,
this forever.
I can put it back in little by little, and little by little, you've lost it all again.
Yeah,
So I think that's some of it. I think where we are emotionally, sometimes, we're depressed, whatever's going on in our lives, and we seek that out as the activity that's going to make us feel better. And also, people sometimes think that's the way I'm going to get rich. I'm going to buy that, go to that casino and win big on the slot, or I'm going to buy that lottery ticket and win big on that ticket, and I'm going to become a millionaire. And I think we all know that the odds are not in your favor necessarily. It's not that people don't win, but the odds of winning are not high in
last
your
question
favor.
I have for you, and we're talking to Mary Drexler, the director of the Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling. 1-800-GAMBLER or helpmygamblingproblem.org are the ways to go to it. Is Most gamblers also go through this period, Mary, where the losing of the money seems like the only problem they have is, wow, I lost $3,000, I lost $5,000. Talk a little bit about the collateral damage in somebody's life that is going through a gambling problem that doesn't own up to it in times, about how you can lose people in your lives, etc.
Yeah, huge. I agree. Financial is a piece of it, but relationships, it could be a spouse, could be a girlfriend. Jobs are totally impacted because your focus is not on your employment. Your focus is always on gambling. But I think one of the strongest ones are what happens with relationships within a family unit, not just with the spouse, but with the children, with, again, anyone that you have a significant relationship with. I think that's huge.
All right, Mary, we just scratched the surface on it, and I don't know, the next time we talk, it'll be all that different, but we'll keep chipping away at this issue and trying to help some people. All
Yeah,
right.
well, we may know where we are in the state with more legalized gambling, so that might be an interesting topic as well. I really appreciate it.
All right. Mary Drexler, the director of the Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling under the umbrella of the University of Maryland Sports School, Maryland School of Medicine. And again, 1-800-GAMBLER, you can call 24/7, and there's somebody there to talk to you and get you some help, or go to the website, helpmygamblingproblem.org. Mary, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.